Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
As the old wisdom goes, the best laid plans of man, woman, beast can always go wrong. And if you are a cricket buff, it will almost certainly go wrong. So today, I had decided since the morning and I had worked it out in my head that I will record this episode of Cut the Clutter during the lunch time. It so happens that I'm beginning to record as soon as lunch has ended and play is beginning. So while I'm away from the TV screens and I'm not helping Indian batsmen survive and score some runs, it's the responsibility of all of you to make sure that at least until I go back to watch, no wicket falls and we are doing all right. Now, it's also that we have to talk about a couple of things today, a couple of very different things. We are talking about the new development on Kashmir, which is very significant. So I would say that what's happening now on Kashmir, it will happen tomorrow, that is Thursday. I'm recording this on Wednesday. That is a logical next big step after what happened on August 5, 2019. And I will try to explain to you what is the difference that situation or that decision has made fundamentally. That is one. And the second thing, we keep reading all this stuff about Chinese vaccines. The Chinese vaccines are not so effective. They are not doing very well. Chinese government is now claiming they've nearly already inoculated 1 billion people, 1 billion Chinese. In fact, they say they are inoculating more than 1 crore a day and they've been doing it for quite some time. On some days they claim 1.8 crores, but there's a catch. And the catch is that while these vaccines are being used in 90 countries, Chinese were very aggressive with their version of vaccine Matri. Many countries now are reporting problems with these vaccines. So we see a lot of stray comments here and there, the Chinese vaccines are not working, but now we have some authentic information that has come from a very well researched New York Times article, which also reflects a lot that I'm reading in world media and scientific media about these two Chinese vaccines, Sinopharm and Sinovac. So those are the two things we'll talk about. First of all, Kashmir. See these pictures of people coming in for the meeting. You will see that those pictures tomorrow. Now these pictures, the Muftis are there, that family. Abdullahs are there. In fact, both Abdullahs are there. Sajjad Lone is there. There will be 14 leaders coming in from J&K. There will be leaders of the BJP from there who are more from Jammu than from the valley, but leaders from the BJP from Jammu and Kashmir, the Union Territory of Jammu Kashmir as of now. All 4 of the former chief ministers will be there. That is Farooq Abdullah, Omar Abdullah, Mufti Mehbooba Mufti and Ghulam Nabi Azad of Congress. So all 4 former CMs will be there who are part or not part of PAGD or People's Alliance for Gupkar Declaration. Gupkar Declaration, as you know, was about restoring the state to its pre-August 5, 2019 status. Important thing is now PAGD has agreed to join these talks, all party talks with the Prime Minister without making that a precondition. Although different people are saying different things about to put out their version of how they see the situation. This also includes this group, Awami National Conference, Jammu and Kashmir Awami National Conference, that is JKANC. It also includes Sajjad Lone of People's Conference and also which is no longer a part of PAGD, if I must mention that, and also JKAP, Jammu and Kashmir Apni Party. That was set up just before the August 5 decisions, obviously with the blessings of the central government. And its founder, Mr. Bukhari, was a rare political leader in Kashmir, not sent to jail. Almost all the other leaders have seen either jail, a regular jail, or detention at home. So in spite of that, they are coming for these talks. That is the big change. Now they are coming for these talks and they are saying their own things. For example, Mehbooba Mufti said that, look, statehood is no promise. Now there is wide expectation that central government will restore statehood to Jammu and Kashmir. Not Ladakh, that remains a union territory, but to Jammu and Kashmir. In fact, the Home Minister had made that commitment on the floor of parliament, and Prime Minister had also said that in his address to the nation. So Mehbooba is saying that look, it's no big deal. You had made a commitment to restore our statehood, but that statehood doesn't matter unless you also restore our special status. That is Article 370, I presume 35A, and all the other things that distinguished the governance of Kashmir from the rest of the country, or the constitutional status of Kashmir from the rest of the country. So she's saying, if we are not getting that, then what is the point of talking? But at the same time, she says we were never against the talks. In fact, she goes to the extent of saying that India should talk with Pakistan, and she's a politician. So she says if India can talk to the Taliban in Afghanistan, because you know that Taliban are rising now, why can't India talk to Pakistan? Because that's where the solution lies. So that is one view. There is also a wonderful man in the group called Yusuf Taregami. Now this is something that not many people know, but CPM has a strong unit in Kashmir Valley. You can say a one-man unit, but that one man keeps winning elections. Yusuf Taregami is a wonderful Kashmiri politician. So Yusuf Taregami says that we are going to Delhi with the Wakalatnama, with the power of attorney from the people of Kashmir, to give them what they really need. But everybody is coming pleasantly in a good mood, and all the noises from the central government also are good noises. Now I see a lot of chatter on social media, particularly from the more strident supporters of the BJP RSS, saying what the hell is this, these are killers, these are so-and-sos, so-and-so said this, so-and-so said this, Farooq Abdullah said this in one meeting, pick up the guns, somebody else said something, how can you talk to them? So the point is, who do you have negotiations with? You have negotiations with those who disagree with you. The second big change is that these are all the same people who, after the August 5, 2019 decision, the establishment in Delhi and BJP had said that these are very unpopular, that people of Kashmir hate these dynasties are thieves, they've held Kashmir to ransom. When they set up their group in Gupkar, with Gupkar declaration, they were called the Gupkar gang. Gupkar is a locality, an elite locality, the elite of the elites, the Sarkari political elite locality of Srinagar. They were called the Gupkar gang by people very high up in the government, but they are talking with them. But ultimately, you talk with your adversary or those who disagree with you. What's the point of talking to those who agree with you? Then one will say something, the other will nod. It will be very boring also. Plus, that will not be a negotiation. That will be a bhashan or a sermon or something like that. So this is happening. Now the big thing is that besides Mehbooba, who said Article 370, all the others are not making a big deal of it. For formal record, they might say at some point, no, but we want Article 370 restored. But the big change between August 5, 2019 and now is that the abolition of the special status of Jammu and Kashmir is pretty much seen as a given. It's a fait accompli. So Pakistan also talks about it. I don't know who cares. But Pakistan also very often they don't specifically talk about Article 370. Remember when it was abolished, Imran Khan and some other Pakistani officials had said, we don't even recognize Article 370 because what is it? It's part of the Indian Constitution. We don't think Kashmir. He said that they don't think that Kashmir is a part of India. So why should they bother about what's happened with Article 370? So I would say that the big change is, one, that the division of Jammu and Kashmir into Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh has now been accepted. That's now become a fait accompli. And there was a strategic purpose, geostrategic purpose behind that. It wasn't just ethnic. And the subsequent events have shown us what the geostrategic purpose might have been. To govern Ladakh directly from Delhi as a union territory. It has a very few people, couple of lakh, something like that. Jammu and Kashmir, statehood now seems to be on the cards. When that will happen, we don't know, but before that something else has to happen. So there is a committee under retired Judge Justice Ranjana Desai that's looking at delimitation of constituencies, because after all, constituencies in Kashmir actually were supposed to be delimited or changed or redrawn in 2026, but now Ladakh's gone out. This place's geography has changed. The place's ethnicity and demography has changed over time. So this was a part of the commitment, and this was also part of the law that was enacted and amended when the August 5 changes took place. So not everybody is happy with this delimitation. Mehbooba Mufti again has said, what is the hurry with this delimitation? This was meant to happen in 2026. Do the rest. This can be done later. Why are you doing it? Obviously, she sees a plot there, and ultimately it comes to that valley, non-valley people, Hindu, Muslim. But delimitation now is an inevitability. It's only after that happens that the full statehood would be restored. Technically, you can do it even now and put it under a governor, under president's rule. So I don't know what the plan is, but the fact is that this is a move forward. After August 5, many of these leaders had said that we need a new societal contract between the people of Jammu and Kashmir and the people of India. I think that new societal contract is now in the works. There are many factors behind it. There is the developments in Pakistan and Afghanistan. Essentially Afghanistan, there is the American interest in, as they get away from Afghanistan, in keeping stability there. The India-Pakistan thaw is the key to that stability. Peace in Kashmir is a key to an India-Pakistan thought. And also, I think there is a realization on the part of government of India as well, that in these couple of years, they haven't quite achieved what they wanted to achieve in Kashmir on the ground. In the sense that insurgency is still growing, there is a lot of resentment, so it's not as if the problem has been settled. So, God forbid, there is one more big incident in Kashmir now, God forbid I said. Then, do you still have the option of going and attacking Balakot or something like that, with the Chinese sitting all along eastern Ladakh, not refusing to budge? In fact, today the Chinese Defense Ministry has said that there's nothing unusual about this. This is our normal defensive deployment, which means come what may, we are here to stay. So does India want to liven up that frontier, or does India want China to liven up that frontier? Similarly, the Americans and others do not want Pakistan disturbed right now. So smart politics would demand that peace remains in Kashmir and some kind of political normalcy is restored. On the other hand, why are these PAGD people talking? Because one, they are finding that Article 370 is not going to happen, at least not in a hurry, but not going to happen. You can ask me, I will tell you it's not going to happen. And they know it. They are all smarter than me, or they would not be where they are, and that too in Kashmir Valley, which is not an easy place to operate for a politician. The second thing is, they saw the Block Development Council's election, and I think they were quite strongly surprised by the turnout. They thought this will be a complete boycott, nothing will happen. But a lot of people came out to vote, so there's a yearning for the vote and some political activity. So this combination of factors has done this. Net, Article 370 is over, special status is over, Ladakh is a different union territory. Most likely, Jammu and Kashmir will become a full-fledged state again. In fact, one more contentious issue will come up as we go along. The centre's bargaining position would be, and I think centre is quite strongly committed to that this new state, the government will have some limitations. For example, they don't want to trust the state police with the new state government. And these leaders would say, look, if I don't control my police, then what is the point of being chief ministers? Then you are reducing us to the level of the chief minister of Delhi, that is Arvind Kejriwal. That police is with somebody else, some departments are with somebody else. So we will then become like a union territory with characteristics of a state, not a full-fledged state. So that, I think, will be the next negotiating position. Having said that, I now switch to the other question, which is vaccines. Now, there is a story in the New York Times, which I'm sharing with you, by Sui Lee Wen. She's a reporter, and she tells you that there are 90 countries which have used China's vaccines, because China was quick off the mark. Chinese produce very fast. They have assembly lines, whether it's cars, whether it's toys, or vaccines. So they produced a lot of vaccines. Their vaccine is also the whole virion, a bit like our Covaxin, which is the full virus but killed. So they produced these two vaccines, Sinovac and Sinopharm. As such, these did not claim very high efficacy. So Sinopharm claimed 78%, Sinovac claimed only 51%. A lot of some studies have been published, but not too much has been published that is peer reviewed. Still, some studies for each one have been published. They've been approved by WHO. Now she tells us that look at the countries: Chile, Mongolia, Bahrain, Seychelles. Small countries, not large countries, so easy to vaccinate. All these countries, more than 58 to 60% people were already vaccinated when she wrote this article, which may have been a couple of days back, because there is also a time difference. So in spite of that, and this 58-60% is actually more than the US, which is about 48-49% right now, struggling to get to 50% of all their population vaccinated. Out of this, she says, in spite of that, today if you see the rise or the return of the virus, these 4 countries are the 4 tops among the 10 top countries. So 10 countries with the fastest rising coronavirus, return of coronavirus, include 4 of these: Chile, Mongolia, Bahrain, Seychelles. And all of these have been awash with Chinese vaccines. And she quotes Jin Dongguan from University of Hong Kong, who is a virologist, who says that, look, if the vaccines are sufficiently good, we should not be seeing this pattern, so the Chinese have some answers to give. As I told you, US is not at 50%, but even at 45% when last data was checked, reduction in the infection rates was of the order of 94%. Again, for comparisons, if you see Israel has used messenger RNA vaccines, mostly Pfizer vaccines. In Israel now, positive cases are 4.95 per million. That's really rare. Less than 5 in 10 lakhs. Whereas in Seychelles, which has used the Chinese vaccine, it's 716 per million. That is not nice at all. Mongolia, where 52% have been vaccinated, now saw 2,400 cases yesterday, and cases are going up quite rapidly. In fact, in a week, they've seen cases go up 4 times. So in response, while the Chinese are obviously defending this and saying this is wrong, and I will tell you the final defense, which you will hear from many vaccine manufacturers, and not frankly not that fallacious also. Bahrain and UAE, that use a lot of the Chinese vaccines, have now offered their citizens a 3rd shot, and they can choose whether they want it to be a Sinopharm or they want it to be Pfizer. That is supposed to strengthen their immunity further. Now the Chinese are saying that, look, these are early vaccines. These were not all meant to completely prevent infections, but these prevent hospitalization and in almost all cases fatalities. There may be some truth to that, and that is where I read one more article which we published on the print from Bloomberg, which I will share with you, which said that as coronavirus becomes more regular and part of our lives, people will now stop counting the cases to come to a conclusion of whether the disease is growing or not. They'll be counting serious cases, hospitalizations, and fatalities. On which note, I must get back immediately to the TV screens. I hope I don't have a heartbreak there.